All right, we have plenty to get to. I guess the story that everybody's talking about is Spencer Leniu, who, people say he's got white line fever, gets very angry once it gets across the sideline. Apparently he can move it to both sides of the sideline. He did last night in a confrontation with Jonathan Thurston. Just talk us through, Michael Chammas, what has happened thus far.
Yeah, so it all started with about 20 minutes to go. Spencer Leniu came from the field. He was interchanged. And as you'd expect, he didn't get a great reception from the Brisbane faithful. He was booed as he walked back to the Roosters bench, which a lot of players are booed as they're walking back to the bench. Spencer didn't like it. He let his feelings be known to the Broncos crowd. Basically, he told them, you can go and get you-know-what, and then turned to JT, who was sitting on the sideline for Channel 9 on the night, and said, you can go and get
far away
too. Yes, you can get far away too. So at the time, and speaking to people, obviously I work for Channel 9, but speaking to people there, JT was baffled as to what that was about. And that led to what happened after the game with JT going up to Spencer, not for an interview because that wasn't part of Nine's plans.
Gotcha. So that wasn't an interview that they were going. That was just
to
try and chat, clear the air to find out what's going on.
Well, I think JT was rattled as to what motivated Spencer to go at him directly as he left from the field. So he approached Spencer, and Spencer was quite animated as to his views on Jonathan Thurston, and they relate back to the Ezra Mayhem situation back in Las Vegas, because if you remember last year, Jonathan Thurston was quite vocal about the ban being too soft, 8-week ban that he was given for calling calling Ezra Mayhem a monkey in Las Vegas. So Jonathan Thurston called for a 12-week ban at the time. Now, it continued after the game because as Trent Robinson was leaving the sheds to go to do his press conference, he was speaking to Jonathan Thurston in the tunnel, and Spencer saw that was happening, came out, and then continued the conversation with Jonathan Thurston and then exchanged expletives as well. So Spencer's clearly aggrieved with what Jonathan Thurston has said, and it's also in relation to a podcast, which we'll get to a bit later. But this all started from Jonathan Thurston being confused as to why Spencer gave him a gobful on his way off the field.
All right, clearly it was a robust discussion that was taking place between those two. What did you make of it?
I tend to agree with Robert. Look, we're here now. We're doing the show. We're talking about games and players, and we're having an opinion on how we see things, how the game's being played, incidences happen. Now, that's just my opinion. I'm not naive to think that everyone agrees with it. People might completely disagree with it, and I think if they do, that's fine. I don't really have a problem with people disagreeing with me. If they feel like the need to come and say something to me, that's fine as well. I think we've got to take into context it's actually happened during a footy game as well and after a footy game. And when in that environment, it's highly competitive, highly emotional. It is confronting at times with the physical nature of our game. So
wait a minute, JT's there in a suit.
Yeah, I know, but Spencer's coming off the field, getting booed. He's got his blood running. He's probably not thinking clearly enough. Even after the game, he's still in game mode. He's still in that mindset of getting himself up. Now, listen, I don't mind him having a disagreement with JT or not liking what JT said about him, and I don't even mind him confronting him about it because that might be the first time they've ever seen eye to eye. I just think he's got to be really careful with how you express that. There's no need to go over the top. I don't think there's any.
Well, has it been over the top?
Well, I don't know. I'm only hearing the second.
We call people F-wits all the time and F-off and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, and there's always been run-ins with media.
Well, and even during players.
There was times when I disagreed or disliked certain media personalities, and there was times I'd say things not like not like as far as what Spencer's done on the field, but I definitely wouldn't do interviews with people.
But what about if it's enough, the way he said it and what he's expressed, is that it puts off Jonathan Thurston from going into those change rooms and doing the job that he was supposed to be doing? He was made to feel that uncomfortable that he wouldn't be there.
Yeah, but I think JT's a big boy. If he's got a job to do, he needs to go and do that job and go into the change room. I don't think Spencer has the right to block him from the change room to do his job, but I don't think Spencer has to be his friend or even like him. But there is an obligation, I feel, from him to do his job as a player, and if he wants an interview, you need to do an interview and give your time. But they don't need to be friends. Like our game, like ultimately players do get along with each other, but some players don't get along with each other because of the nature of our game. And again, like I don't mind him confronting him. I'm not 100% aware of everything that was said and how it was said. You got to be careful that you don't cross the line. But no one says you need to be friends with everyone in this game. It's just, I think that's an unfair, really, like to put on anyone. And of course, JT is going to be asked to have opinions on everything because he is such a big player. He has such a big standing in our game, and he needs to give his opinion on where he stands. Now, if someone disagrees with that and wants to confront him about it, I think that's within their right.
Well, does this flow down from obviously what happened in Vegas with the
Well, it doesn't. I think there's been beyond there.
Because I know JT's a very proud Indigenous man, and he's going to stick up for his people and all, and he was strong. He was a strong believer that the sentence or that the 8 weeks wasn't long enough.
Well, absolutely, Heine. And in fact, Michael, you can kind of be more specific about that.
Yeah, the context to it is obviously at the time Spencer, the way he handled it in judiciary was that he said he didn't mean it in a racial nature. Okay, and if you go back to that doesn't make it right. He's trying to explain that in his time, and he wasn't here. They brought up Andrew Simons, the issue with Adam Goods. And he says he wasn't even aware of those. He wasn't even using it in that way. Now, obviously, it's naive in that situation to think that you can call someone that. I think he said it's one brown player calling another brown fella having a sledge, right? So in his mind, he hasn't done anything wrong. So to hear JT do that and then to see the events that unfolded around Ezra Mam at the end of last year, that he only got a 9-week ban when Spencer got an 8-week ban when Ezra Mam had been involved in a car accident under the influence. And he's probably thinking that the same people who were trying to hang me out to dry, where are they now in this situation? Because I think the NRL hit Ezra Mam with a feather. He should have been banned for the year for what he did.
I agree.
And again, like I can see why Spencer feels like he needs to defend himself. Obviously, he got put through the ringer for an action that he did, which was fair, and he needed to have a suspension from that incident over in Vegas. But then again, personally, when Ezra goes through the situation he went through, driving under the influence, put someone's life in danger, and for him to get a lesser ban that Spencer got, I can agree why he feels like, well, why did I get so much and that guy over there didn't? And in his mind, he thinks that is way worse. And I agree. I think Ezra's ban was way too... His ban was way too low. He should have been 12 months easy out of the game for that. And I can understand why he was. He's been probably boiling that up inside, and then all of a sudden he comes across JT in a hostile environment where he's getting booed from the fans. He's emotional from the game, and then it bubbles out. It comes out, and then of course off the back of that, there's more, and he's already made his point. And the type of guy Spencer is, he's not going to backtrack or he's not going to go backwards in any sense. No. He's going to keep pressing forward.
Totally.
So I think, it's happened. JT, if he's okay, well, let's move on.
Yes, we're speaking to Christian Wolf, the coach of the Dolphins, and they rolled the Panthers 30 points to 12, and that loss pushes the Panthers into a corner that no team has escaped from in the 117-year history of the game, being 1-5 and going on to win a grand final. Let's forget about even that. What about where will they end up? Can they get to the top 4? Can they get to the top 8? Where are we putting Penrith right now?
Well, as long as they get to the top 8, it's a totally different ballgame. Yep. Like that's how you think about it when you're out there playing. And if you've had a bad start to the season, you know that when you make the top 8, it's a totally different competition. You get a fresh start, fresh set of legs, all that sort of stuff. So, look, there's no way you can write off Panthers with the players they've got, with the coaching they've got. They're going to be thereabouts. They've obviously had a slow start to the season, a little bit disjointed. They've got some new faces in there, but they're just, for me at the moment, they look fatigued. That's the scary thing, because I don't know whether or not Ivan can afford to give too many of them a rest, and you got Origin around the corner as well. So that's going to be the tricky period there to get them through that Origin, I suppose, part of the season and find the legs to get through the back end of the year.
No, I agree with Hindy. I feel like they just have to get there. Once they're there, their big game experience, where they've been in the past, it should hold up and put them in good stead. And I know I've spoken with Jimmy Graham about this. If they do get because they're going to have some struggles through the origin period. You have to think they'd drop a couple of games there. And the top 4 might become too far of a reach for them. But if they do make the 8, potentially we could see a team for the first time win from outside the 4 because of their experience and because we know when they put it together what sort of team they are. Whether they can get back to that form, listen, they have some work to do. It was an odd game the other night. At halftime, basically, if you just took away the score and looked at the stats, possession was 51-49 to the Dolphins. That was the only stat in their favour. Errors conceded, field position, obviously tackles in opposition 20. It all favoured Penrith. And really, the Dolphins weren't playing all that well. They were defending great, but it was 2 moments, just split the field, shift to the hammer out the back, and just got on the outside of the halves and really threatened Tungo and McLean on either side and just sent Farnworth and Avarillo through untouched. Now, we haven't seen that in a Penrith defensive system for so long, and they need to work hard to try and find that intensity and those combinations to get back in the winner's circle. And you start to feel it in your preparation. You start to feel it in your confidence when you go through slumps like this. And the only way out of it is hard work and to keep applying yourself and turning up. But yeah, they're in a bit of a hole at the moment, and it's a big challenge for Ivan to get them out of that. But if they get there and they get into the 8, I certainly, as an opposition player, I would not want to be facing them in the finals because we've seen what they can do.
I felt a bit sad watching that, to be honest with you. It was like this champion team because they were so ordinary. It just was so clunky. Like they were. I know you laughed.
They were.
That's why it made me like, it's like, what has happened? It looked like they hadn't played together before. And I know it's a lot of new faces in that team. It just felt so disjointed. And poor old Blaise Talangi, he didn't have a night that he'll want to remember. There's a lot of noise about him, about why he hasn't been in the team to start the season. I think we saw what the Panthers saw in the offseason, that perhaps there's a bit more development in him before you give him the number 6 jersey alongside Nathan. I just felt like he looked a little bit lost out there, poor old Blaise. And he's an exceptional talent.
He's going to be lost. But there is also a reason why the Eels didn't fight too hard to hold on to him. They were quite happy for him to go to Penrith. So
yeah, I don't know about
that's
that.
a bit of a stretch.
I think they fought for him.
I know a bit.
They were,
but they weren't.
I know a bit. Blood capsules.
I'll tell you about that story.
Tell
about
us what you know. Tell us what you know, Andy.
I'm not going to divulge what I know.
Why not?
Because it's
you just did. You said the Eels didn't fight hard to keep him.
Well, they know there's a fair bit of work that's got to go into Blaise to make him a consistent NRL player.
Because they thought he was a 1, right? Not a 6.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. So they were banking. He started off in the centres. He scored a great try in the centres on debut. But then they moved him to fullback, didn't handle that too well, and a try at 6. So he's going to have some development to do. But also, too, there's this thing where you step into a 4-time winning premiership side, you're going to be nervous. You're going to be shitting yourself as still a pretty much a rookie player to know the ins and outs. I know he's been training there a long time, but he looked nervous. He looked very nervous, and he looked like the one that he felt that he had to try and produce something. There was a couple of wayward passes there on the 3rd and 4th tackle where he tried to just produce something out of nothing. It didn't work for him, and that kind of rocked his confidence a bit. But he will develop. I think he's smart enough and he's going to be good enough but they just got to give him a little bit more time.
Yeah, he's definitely a work in progress. Like we've seen the talent that he has at times shine through last year. He hasn't had much of an opportunity this year. Really, the game on the weekend was his first starting match, but there's no doubt when it comes to talent, like he's a runner of the football. He's got speed. He can. That's why he was good in the centres. But when you have a 6 on your back, that added responsibility, you need to start thinking about your footy, thinking about setting up the plays, communicating with your half, your 9, communicating with your centres. That added responsibility can take away from that freedom of just being able to go out there in the centres, hold your spot and get service the ball instead of being the one in the middle, calling the shots and servicing the other guys. And again, he comes into a team who's, I know we talk about him as the defending premiers, but they're down on confidence for sure. Like they might be fatiguing it, but they're just, things aren't working for them. And they're coming up with plays that we don't normally see them come up with. Like the chip kick off the scrum, that set play where they'd have Talangi at the scrum, put the ball down, Jenkins would run in, then they'd shift around. It was just like there's no need for that. I don't think they're too good of a team.
Yeah.
It's like they're coming up with stuff for quick fixes instead of going, no, we know what we're doing here. Let's just pack the scrum, go through our set and build our footy game. So they're searching a little bit. And again, it's going to take some effort and some hard work from them to get out of this form slump. But the big buddies, if they get to the 8, if somehow a miracle they're in the 4, well, it's a different game. But if they get to the 8, I wouldn't want to be playing them in a semi-final, particularly a sudden death semi-final. And it's not beyond them to go on a 3 or 4 game winning streak and defend their title.
But how much weight comes onto the shoulders of Nathan Cleary? And don't get me wrong, he's been doing that even with Penrith at their best. He picked them up and put them on his shoulders in a grand final against Brisbane and won that game for them. But without Jerome Luai, he looks at quite a long way now before he gets to that finish line, being the finals, and he's responsible for dragging them along.
Yeah, I think Nath is equipped to deal with this. I know we all know him as the player who he's been for the last 4 or 5 years. One of if not the best halfback in the competition. But he's been around a long time, and we need to remember there was some Lenius there for a while out of Penrith, and he certainly went through some hard times as a youngster while he was still developing. Now, those lessons never go away. They're in him as a person. They're in his character, and he won't shirk his responsibility. Like, Nath is one of the hardest workers in the competition already. That's why he's achieved what he has achieved. But sometimes when you get into situations like this, it even brings more out of players like that, because he knows the responsibility he has to his club and his teammates and his coach, who is his father. So I think he won't shy away from that. He'll be in there working as hard as anyone, if not more, to try and get the ship back on track.
But can you, Wado, fall into that trap, or can he fall into that trap of trying too much?
Too much.
And that's what it kind of seemed to be the other night. I thought, we're all sitting there at home watching it, and we're thinking, Nathan is going to pull something out here. They're going to get that little bit of momentum. They only need 10 minutes to try and chase this down. They need 5 minutes or whatever. And it just seemed to – it was probably the first time ever I'd seen maybe a little bit of panic involved. But can you go too far by trying too much?
Well, of course, you can overdo it, and that can affect your performance. But yeah, I think I'd rather see someone overdoing it than underdoing it. And you come up with mistakes when you're searching for stuff when you're not comfortable, and they're in this slump at the moment, but they'll get out of it. They're going to get.
I think everyone knows they're going to get out of it.
The thing is, when do they get out of it, and then managing the origin period, because despite how they're going at the moment, you still have to think if Nathan's fit, he'll be in there. Isaiah Yeo, Edwards is the incumbent. Liam Martin will definitely be in there. So there's another 4 or 5. They haven't got the depth like they used to
rest
to allow players a bit of rest.
Yep.
So how do they manage that period? And if they do drop another 2 or 3 games there, does the top 4 become a little bit out of reach for them? It's a different looking season. It's a challenge for Ivan and his team, but you'd be brave backing against them.
I don't think it's just footy, to be honest, boys. I think we're underestimating the impact, not only the players they've lost in terms of their caliber, but what it does to the environment.
The attitude.
Yeah, like Jerome Luai and Sania Taruva were renowned for the guys who brought the energy to that football team off the field as well as on the field. And while they looked flat on the field, I think that there's the flow-on effect to that football team is it's not the same inside the 4 walls as it used to be. And then you have a guy like Brian To'o who's missing his mates. And
Crichton's
the effect
gone.
He's having. He's been gone for a couple of years. Fisher Harris. And I feel like it's for the first time we're starting to see fatigue, not just in their football, but inside those 4 walls. And I just don't know how they can get out of it without those guys who actually brought the energy to their football team. So when things were going wrong or when they were down, they were the ones that were bringing back that energy to muster the fight. And it's not happening for them at the moment. And I just think that once they start losing games, which they have been, Mitch Kenny's out, big loss for them as well in terms of someone who does that for them. I just fear that perhaps it's the end of the road and they don't have the fight to get back.
So you put a line through them?
To win the comp?
Come
Yeah.
on. Come on.
He lives in Penrith
I feel
too. so-
critical.
You live
I
in the
feel
rip.
like it's hip. You shouldn't be bagging a champion team. I'm not bagging them.
No.
No,
I just think
but you can be honest and think, well, I'm not. I
Yeah.
don't think they're going to win the grand
I
final.
don't think that there's the fight that they had in previous years. Yeah, to win it, they don't have it anymore. I think they're fatigued with winning. As stupid as it sounds,
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
the motivation.
Yeah.
They should have been fatigued 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, I know what
they
you're
had
saying.
no right to win
Well,
four
that-
comps in a row, and
That's
they
what we're
have.
thinking. How do you stay up there?
Well, they-
Like, I know grand finals drive you, and you're a professional player. This is what you want to do, but what keeps you driven to win the fifth?
Well, it's the same thing that kept them.
Because it was easy for me to be hungry because I never
around
won.
them. I
Yeah.
think the people around them created this environment where we're going to get them, stuff for everyone else. We can do it. I don't know if that's there anymore. And you can, as good as Nathan is, he's the best player in the game. If it's not happening around you, I just don't see how they get that fight again.
Well, that's the marvel of that team because it is hard to back up when you win a competition. It is hard to stay motivated, stay hungry, get out there and get your job done. And they've been up for a long time. They've been up for longer than any team that we've seen have been in recent history. And this may be the year that it all doesn't go to plan and they give up that premiership. But I think they're the champions for a reason, and I can't knock them until they actually lose one. So I'll keep backing them of what they've been able to produce, but until they actually fall out of the competition at the end of this season, or they lose the grand final, you just I can't put a line through them.
I actually think there's also a part of them looking at some of these other guys who have left and thinking, wouldn't it be exciting to be part of what Stephen Crichton is building at the Bulldogs or what Jerome Luai is doing? Like these guys, they're so close to them. I think there's an element of they're seeing that their friends have a fresh challenge, an exciting journey that they're going on, and as great as they've been, I think there are some people there thinking,
It's like when your best mate gets divorced and marries again. You know, you get
The grass is always greener on the other side until you get there.
we
and
shouldn't
then
bag
it's
them.
not.
We should.
I'm not bagging them. I'm bagging
I'm
them.
saying I don't want to. Don't want it to come across like I'm bagging them because what they've done.
You're bagging them,
They're
baby.
the greatest team in the modern era.
Can you put that?
But
as
all
that
good
little-
things must come to an end, and it looks like it's coming to an end.
You know, the socials out there is going to be a snap. Michael Chammas bagging Penrith. That's going to be the snap. Everyone's just going to comment on that. Not listen to what you just said. Then it's just going to be Chammas puts a line through Penrith.
So when Penrith come back, I'm the reason they won the comp. That's
Yes.
good. Yeah, great.
All right, my friends. I'm going to go this one because you mentioned it earlier in the day when we were talking about the Roosters. Believe it or not, James Tedesco should be picked in the number 1 jersey for New South Wales.
I'll say I don't believe it. I think Dylan Edwards did enough last year to hold that spot if he's fit and firing. Now, if Dylan Edwards is unavailable, Chammas just gave us a smorgasbord of players there who might need to find a position that's not their own at club level. But if he's not available, I think the way Teddy's been playing this year has been fantastic. So he'll be back in the conversation.
Yeah, I think Teddy can pinch it this year the way he's going. He's got spiders on him. He's looking fit, fresh. He's looking fast, elusive. So I think he might pinch it back.
Do you think?
I don't know if that's a believe it or not. What is
That's
it?
a believe it.
That's a believe it. Yeah, you believe it.
Not right now, but if Penrith's woes continue and Teddy plays the way he has, then I think the conversation will definitely come up. But Dylan doesn't deserve to lose it as it stands right now.
All right, he's playing super football. Believe it or not, this is a story that came up through the week. The Super League is a good investment for the NRL or the ARL.
Believe it. It might not be a good financial investment, but it's a good long-term investment for the future of the game to have England, to shore up England instead of having that comp just diminish and dwindle to a point where it's irrelevant. The NRL needs it to be strong, and I think it'll be a good investment for its own game.
I really have no idea if it's going to be a good investment or not. I don't know about investing. I didn't invest well as a kid. So, look, but everyone makes valid. I'll say I'll believe it. Believe it. It will be a good investment. But I'm only throwing a coin in the air.
Yeah, I believe it as well. We spoke about it in depth on Thursday night, and it was good to hear Jimmy Graham's views on it because he spent a lot of time over in the Super League, and it depends how we do it. But I think if we're going to do it, that NRL need to have the say in the management. They have the blueprint here of what they've created in the NRL, and I think the stronger we can make the Super League, the better off the NRL will be.
But what have been the issues?
Yeah,
what have been
Where's
the
it
issues
falling
about
down?
the Super League?
Well, for one, the broadcast deal has gone down from £44 million to £21 million over since the last broadcast deal was done. the clubs there, they don't make any money. They're losing money. They haven't got enough to pay their players at times. It's getting to a point where if the NRL don't get involved, you're going to have a non-competitive English team. And I was over at the Olympics last year in Paris, and I saw firsthand just how much the locals got into the sevens. France played Argentina in the semi-final, and I tell you, it was the greatest atmosphere I've ever been a part of. And I watched last Olympics, went to the Maracana and watched Brazil play soccer there, and I've been to a lot of good sporting events, privileged to watch for work. That semi-final having France, Argentina, and the atmosphere was incredible. And it got me thinking, like, how we've got such a superior product to rugby union, and we've just fallen away so much on an international scale where we've become irrelevant. We've taken massive inroads on a Pacific front.
Yeah.
But to grow the game in Europe, in England, it has to be the starting point. At the moment, they're almost irrelevant the way things are going in the Super League.
But how's the NRL investing in the Super League going to change what's happening over there?
It's just they haven't got the right people. They haven't got the people who know how to run a successful competition. Of all the rugby competitions in the world, Hindy, the NRL is by far number one. Ahead of all the English rugby, whatever they may be. NRL is miles ahead of everyone else. We know how to run a good competition. If NRL got their hands on that competition, it might not be an overnight success, but they turn it in the right direction and get some money. And the point I made the other night is the broadcast deal for the first time. The reason that this is happening is because for the first time ever, all those broadcast rights come off at the same time. The Super League, NRL, and international rights are all up for negotiation from 2028. So they see this as an opportunity to package rugby league together, own everything, and say to broadcasters, this is what we're going to do. Take it to new markets, get as much money as possible, and help grow the game again.
So they're saying that they want to take over and run that game.
Well, the NRL's not saying it. The Super League have asked them. There was a meeting in Las Vegas between the Wigan owner, Warrington owner, and the NRL power brokers. And the NRL said to them, we aren't coming here unless you're coming to us and say, with an SOS saying, please save our competition. We're not getting involved. So at the moment, those two owners have gone back to the Super League clubs and have said the NRL are willing to get involved, but we need to go to them and say, please help us. The resistance is the weaker clubs. They know if the NRL take over, there is a plan for a 10-team competition, 8 teams out of England, 2 teams in France. There's more than that in England at the moment. So the weaker teams are fighting for survival. If they open the door for the NRL to come, it may be to their own detriment. And that's the issue at the moment is self-preservation may get in the way of what is good for rugby league in England.
Well, you quickly mentioned this the other night. I feel like it's relevant. You may as well go over because it's another option that if the NRL reaches out and works with a few clubs, there could be a separate league that they can create over there possibly as well.
Yeah, because they do have the potential to start a breakaway competition. When the ARL Super League war, one of the main reasons it all went pear-shaped is because the ARL own the rights, the IP of the clubs. That's not the case in the Super League. The clubs own their own IP. So if St. Helens or if Wigan decided, you know what, we're out of the Super League, NRL has started a new competition called NRL Europe and we're going in, and all those bigger clubs go in, Wigan, St. Helens, Leeds, Warrington and Hull KR and Hull FC, they're the 6 that the NRL are looking at. If they all decide we're breaking away, suddenly it's a race for the final 2 spots in an NRL-started competition. I'm just using a name, NRL Europe, because Shane Richardson, the Tigers CEO, and Blake Solly, the South Sydney CEO, they're putting a paper together at the moment, working with the clubs to work out what that looks like going forward. So if the NRL do want to go down that path and the Super League clubs don't invite them in, they can. They can say, okay, join us in our competition. It'll be far more profitable and successful than it is over there.
Love it. All right, so you believe it.
Yeah, good chat.